Have you ever woken up one morning and realized, almost without warning, that your body just doesn't feel the same as it used to? Maybe it was the way your knees protested when you tried to get out of bed. Maybe it was the breathlessness that crept up on you after climbing just one flight of stairs. Or perhaps it was something quieter, something harder to name, like the feeling that the energy you once had, that unstoppable get-up-and-go spirit that used to carry you through your days, had somehow slipped away while you weren't looking. If any of this sounds familiar, I want you to know something very important right now. You are not alone, and more importantly, this is not the end of the road for you, not even close. My name is Dr. Richard Caldwell, and for over 30 years, I have worked with men and women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, people who came to me feeling defeated, feeling like their best years were behind them, feeling like the slow decline they were experiencing was simply the price of growing older. And time again, I have watched those very same people turn their health around in ways that surprised even them. Not through expensive surgeries, not through complicated medical procedures, not through grueling exercise regimens designed for athletes half their age, but through small, consistent, deeply intentional changes to the way they live their daily lives. Changes that anyone can make. Changes that cost nothing but a little awareness and a little commitment. And today, I am going to share those changes with you. Before I do, I want to take a moment to address something that I think many of us carry silently as we get older. There is a kind of quiet grief that comes with aging. We grieve the body we once had. We grieve the effortless movement, the stamina, the strength that we used to take for granted. And sometimes, without even realizing it, we begin to accept a diminished version of ourselves as inevitable. We start to believe the story that says, well, I'm just getting older, what do I expect? And so we sit down a little more. We go out a little less. We stop trying things that once came naturally. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the world around us gets a little smaller. But I am here today to challenge that story. Because what the latest science tells us, and what I have witnessed firsthand across decades of clinical practice, is that the human body at 60, at 70, at 80, still possesses a remarkable capacity to heal, to adapt, to grow stronger. The biology of aging is not the rigid, one-way street we once believed it to be. Your muscles still respond to movement. Your brain still forms new connections. Your immune system still benefits from the right kind of rest. Your bones still strengthen when you give them what they need. The capacity for renewal does not abandon us as we age. It simply requires a little more intention, a little more care, and a little more consistency than it did when we were young. So in this video, I am going to walk you through 5 powerful, evidence-backed practices that can genuinely transform your health and your quality of life, beginning right now, beginning today. And I want to ask you to do one thing as you listen. I want you to set aside any skepticism you might be carrying. I want you to open your mind to the possibility that your best chapter has not been written yet. That the version of you that feels strong, energized, independent, and fully alive is not a memory from the past, but a reality you can still step into. Because it is. I have seen it happen too many times to doubt it. And now let's begin. The first practice I want to talk about is sleep. And I say this knowing that many of you will perhaps underestimate what I am about to share, because sleep is one of those things we tend to think of as passive, as something that simply happens to us when we close our eyes at night. We don't associate it with health transformation the way we might associate exercise or diet with transformation. But I am going to tell you something today that I hope fundamentally changes the way you think about the hours you spend in bed each night. Sleep is not passive. Sleep is one of the most profoundly active and restorative processes your body undergoes in an entire 24-hour cycle. And for people over the age of 60, The quality of your sleep may well be the single most important factor determining the quality of your waking life. Let me explain what actually happens when you sleep, because understanding this will change everything. When you drift off into a deep, restful sleep, your brain activates something called the glymphatic system. Think of it as your brain's own private cleaning crew. Throughout the day, as your brain processes information, makes decisions, manages emotions, and responds to the world around you, it generates metabolic waste products, proteins and toxins that, if left to accumulate, begin to interfere with normal brain function. During deep sleep, the glymphatic system essentially flushes these waste products out of your brain tissue, washing your brain clean in preparation for the next day. Research published in some of the world's most prestigious neuroscience journals has established a direct link between chronic poor sleep and the accumulation of amyloid plaques, the very plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease, which means that every night of truly restorative sleep is not just rest, it is protection. It is literally your brain protecting itself from one of the most feared conditions of older age. But the brain is far from the only beneficiary of good sleep. When you enter the deeper stages of sleep, your pituitary gland releases growth hormone. Now, I know that when you hear the words growth hormone, you might think of athletes or bodybuilders. But in the context of aging, this hormone is extraordinary. It is responsible for the repair and regeneration of muscle tissue. It helps maintain bone density. It supports the health of nearly every organ in your body. It keeps your skin resilient, your joints lubricated, your immune system primed. And the tragic thing is that as we age, the natural release of this hormone diminishes significantly unless we are getting enough high-quality sleep, which means that every night of broken, shallow, or insufficient sleep is a night your body spends without its most powerful internal repair mechanism doing its job. The damage does not announce itself immediately, but it accumulates. And over months and years, the effects of chronic poor sleep show up in the body in ways that most people would never connect back to their nights. Persistent fatigue that no amount of coffee can fix, a weakened immune system that catches every passing illness, emotional fragility, irritability, a low-grade anxiety that seems to have no clear source, a creeping cognitive decline that shows up as forgetfulness, difficulty concentrating, or that frustrating feeling of reaching for a word and finding nothing there. Now, I want to be honest with you because I think you deserve honesty more than you deserve comfort. Sleep changes as we age. The architecture of sleep shifts. We spend less time in the deepest, most restorative stages. We wake more easily. We may find that we feel sleepy earlier in the evening but then wake too early in the morning. These are real, physiological changes, and dismissing them or pretending they don't exist is not helpful. What is helpful is understanding them and learning how to work with your body rather than against it. One of the most powerful things you can do is to anchor your sleep with a consistent rhythm. Your body operates on an internal clock called the circadian rhythm, and this clock is extraordinarily sensitive to the cues you give it. Going to bed at the same time every night and waking at the same time every morning, even on weekends, even when you don't feel like it, trains your circadian rhythm to expect sleep and to begin preparing your body for it. Over time, this consistency alone can dramatically improve the depth and quality of your rest. Your sleeping environment matters more than most people realize. The bedroom should be a sanctuary, a place your nervous system associates exclusively with rest. The ideal temperature for sleep is cooler than most people keep their rooms, somewhere around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. In the hour before bed, begin dimming the lights in your home. This signals your brain to begin releasing melatonin, the hormone that initiates the sleep process. Bright light in the evening, and especially the blue spectrum light emitted by smartphones, tablets, and television screens actively suppresses melatonin production and tricks your brain into thinking it is still midday. I know it is tempting to wind down by scrolling through your phone or watching television in bed, but this habit, more than almost any other, is robbing you of the deep, restorative sleep your body desperately needs. Instead, build an evening ritual that speaks to your nervous system in the language of calm. Perhaps a warm bath or shower, whose gentle drop in body temperature afterward mimics the natural cooling that triggers sleepiness. Perhaps a few minutes of slow, deliberate breathing, inhaling for 4 counts, holding briefly, exhaling for 6 or 8 counts, activating the parasympathetic nervous system and quieting the mental chatter that so often keeps us lying awake staring at the ceiling. Perhaps a cup of warm herbal tea, chamomile or valerian, both of which have mild sedative properties that have been used for centuries. Perhaps a few pages of a gentle book read by the warm, low light of a bedside lamp rather than the harsh glare of a screen. These rituals are not trivial. They are sending a message to every cell in your body that says, the day is done. It is safe to rest. It is time to heal. And if you wake in the night, as many older adults do, resist the urge to look at the clock. Knowing the exact time when you wake at 2 or 3 in the morning serves no purpose except to trigger anxiety, and anxiety is the enemy of sleep. If you cannot fall back to sleep within 20 minutes or so, rather than lying there growing increasingly tense and frustrated, get up quietly, go to a dim, quiet room, do something gentle and calming, and return to bed when you feel sleepy again. This approach, while counterintuitive, is actually one of the most evidence-supported strategies for overcoming the cycle of chronic nighttime waking. Sleep is not indulgence. Sleep is not laziness. Sleep is medicine. It is the most sophisticated, most comprehensive healing system your body possesses, and it is available to you for free every single night. When you begin to treat it with the reverence it deserves, you will be stunned by the transformation. People who commit to improving their sleep often describe feeling like entirely different people within just 2 or 3 weeks. More energy, sharper thinking, steadier emotions, less pain, a body that feels more responsive, more alive. This is not a coincidence. This is biology. This is your body doing what it was designed to do, given the conditions it needs to do it. Now let us talk about the second practice, and this one may be simpler than you expect, but do not let its simplicity fool you into underestimating its power. The second practice is movement throughout the day. Not exercise in the formal, structured sense, though we will get to something like that shortly. I am talking about the simple, continuous, low-level physical activity of not staying still, of breaking up the long stretches of sitting that have become, for many of us, the dominant posture of our daily lives. Research from epidemiologists at some of the world's leading universities has established something that initially shocked even the scientists who discovered it. Prolonged sitting is an independent risk factor for disease and early death, independent even of whether you exercise regularly. Which means that someone who goes for a 30-minute walk every morning, but then sits for the remaining 15 or 16 hours of their waking day, is still at significantly elevated risk for cardiovascular disease, metabolic disorder, and cognitive decline compared to someone who moves regularly throughout the day, even if that movement is gentle and brief. The human body was designed for continuous low-level movement, for walking, standing, bending, reaching, shifting. And when we spend most of our waking hours in one fixed position, we are working against the most fundamental requirements of our own biology. When you sit for extended periods, the circulation in your lower body slows dramatically. The large muscles of your legs, your quadriceps, your hamstrings, your gluteal muscles, these are some of the most metabolically active tissues in your body. When they are inactive for hours at a time, they stop absorbing glucose from your bloodstream effectively. The result is a cascade of metabolic consequences that over time contribute to insulin resistance, elevated blood sugar, and all the chronic conditions that follow. Your cardiovascular system is also affected. Blood pools in the veins of your lower legs. The risk of clot formation increases. Your heart, deprived of the mechanical assistance that leg muscle contractions normally provide in pushing blood back upward, has to work harder against gravity. And perhaps most insidiously, the enzymes responsible for breaking down fats in your bloodstream become significantly less active during prolonged sitting, leading to elevated triglycerides and reduced levels of the protective HDL cholesterol. But the damage is not purely physical. There is a growing body of evidence suggesting that extended physical inactivity profoundly affects brain chemistry. Physical movement triggers the release of a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, which scientists sometimes refer to as miracle grow for the brain. BDNF promotes the growth of new neural connections, protects existing neurons from damage, and plays a critical role in mood regulation, memory formation, and cognitive resilience. When we sit too much, BDNF levels drop, and the brain quite literally begins to suffer. This is part of the reason why physical inactivity is so strongly correlated with depression, anxiety, and accelerated cognitive decline in older adults. The solution, however, does not require heroic effort. It requires awareness and intention. The simple practice of standing up and moving for just 2 to 3 minutes every 30 to 45 minutes can interrupt this cascade of physiological harm before it has a chance to accumulate. Set a gentle alarm on your phone or watch if you need to. When it goes off, stand up, walk to the kitchen and back. Do a few gentle heel raises standing at your kitchen counter. March slowly in place for a moment. Roll your shoulders, turn your head from side to side, reach your arms overhead and breathe. These are tiny acts, but their cumulative impact over the course of a day, a week, a month, a year is profound. Think about the texture of your day and look for opportunities to weave movement into the fabric of it naturally. When you are on the phone, stand up and pace gently rather than sitting. When you are watching television, stand during commercial breaks or use them as a cue to do a brief stretch. When you need to speak with a family member in another room, walk to them rather than calling out. When you have a choice between sitting and standing, choose standing. None of these changes require willpower or discipline in the conventional sense. They simply require a slight shift in your default behaviors, a gentle rewiring of the automatic choices that govern your day. And here is something I want you to understand about movement that I think is profoundly important, especially for people who have spent years believing that exercise means pain or sweat or pushing through discomfort. Movement, in the sense I am describing it, is meant to feel good. It is meant to be pleasurable. The gentle rhythm of walking, the satisfying release of a good stretch, the warmth that spreads through your muscles when you use them. These are signals from your body saying thank you. And the more you listen to those signals, the more naturally movement will become something you seek out rather than something you have to force yourself to do. The third practice I want to share with you today is something so simple, so freely available, so consistently underestimated in its power, that most people cannot quite believe it when I tell them. The third practice is getting outside into natural sunlight every single day. I am not talking about hours of sun exposure. I am not suggesting you lie out in the afternoon sun without protection. I am talking about 10 to 20 minutes of gentle, natural daylight, ideally in the morning, as a non-negotiable part of your daily rhythm. And the reasons this matters are layered, remarkable, and deeply connected to virtually every other aspect of your health. Let us begin with vitamin D, because it is the most well-known benefit of sun exposure, and yet remains one of the most under-addressed nutritional deficiencies in older adults worldwide. Studies consistently show that a significant majority of people over the age of 60 are deficient in vitamin D, and the consequences of this deficiency are far more serious than most people understand. Vitamin D is not simply a vitamin in the traditional sense. It functions more like a hormone, regulating the activity of hundreds of genes throughout the body. It is essential for calcium absorption, which means it is directly responsible for maintaining the density and strength of your bones. Without adequate vitamin D, calcium cannot be properly incorporated into bone tissue regardless of how much calcium you consume, which means that vitamin D deficiency is one of the leading contributors to osteoporosis and the devastating fractures that can follow. And I want to be direct with you about this. A hip fracture in a person over 70 is not simply a painful inconvenience. It is a life-altering event that dramatically increases mortality risk and can mark the beginning of a prolonged decline. Protecting your bone density is not vanity. It is survival, but vitamin D's role extends far beyond bone health. It is a critical modulator of immune function, helping your immune system respond appropriately to pathogens while also preventing the kind of excessive inflammatory responses that contribute to so many of the chronic conditions of aging, including arthritis, cardiovascular disease, and certain cancers. It plays a role in muscle function, and deficiency is strongly associated with muscle weakness and an increased risk of falls. It influences mood and is linked to depression when levels are chronically low. It even appears to play a protective role in cognitive function, with some research suggesting that adequate vitamin D levels are associated with a lower risk of dementia. Your skin produces vitamin D when it is exposed to the ultraviolet B rays in sunlight. But here is what most people do not realize. This process becomes significantly less efficient as we age. A person in their 70s produces vitamin D from sun exposure at roughly 1/4 the rate of a young adult. This means that the modest sun exposure that might have been sufficient in your 30s is likely not enough to maintain adequate vitamin D levels in your 70s. And if you are spending most of your time indoors, as many older adults do, the deficit compounds quickly. Beyond vitamin D, natural sunlight delivers another extraordinary gift: the calibration of your circadian rhythm. Your brain contains a tiny structure called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which serves as your body's master clock. This clock sets the timing of virtually every biological process in your body, from hormone secretion to body temperature to the sleep-wake cycle, and it is exquisitely sensitive to light. Specifically, it relies on exposure to bright, full-spectrum natural light, particularly in the morning hours, to calibrate itself correctly. When we spend our mornings indoors under artificial lighting, which is typically far less intense than natural daylight, our master clock drifts. And when the clock drifts, everything drifts with it. Sleep becomes fragmented and less restorative. Hormone release becomes mistimed. Digestion becomes irregular. Mood becomes unstable. The elegant orchestration of your internal biology depends on that morning light signal more than almost anything else. So step outside in the morning if you possibly can, even if it is overcast. Even on a cloudy day, the light intensity outdoors is dramatically greater than anything you will experience inside your home. Sit on your porch with your morning tea. Walk slowly around the block. Find a park bench and simply sit and breathe the morning air. Let the light reach your eyes, not staring at the sun, but simply being in its presence, allowing that signal to travel from your retinas to your brain and begin synchronizing every clock in your body with the rhythm of the natural world. There are few interventions I recommend to my older patients that deliver so many benefits so reliably, so simply, and at absolutely zero cost. The fourth practice I want to walk you through is something that I think many people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s have stopped believing is available to them, and that is building and maintaining the strength of their legs. I say this not to intimidate or discourage anyone. I say it because the strength of your lower body, your quadriceps, your hamstrings, your calves, your glutes, your hip flexors, is one of the single most powerful predictors of longevity, independence, and quality of life in older age. Research from institutions including the Mayo Clinic and Harvard Medical School has repeatedly shown that lower body muscle strength in older adults is a stronger predictor of survival than many traditional risk factors, including cholesterol levels, blood pressure, and even certain cardiac metrics. The reason for this is multifaceted and profound. Your leg muscles are the largest muscles in your body. When they are active and strong, they function as metabolic engines, consuming glucose, supporting insulin sensitivity, producing hormones and signaling molecules that benefit virtually every other system in the body. They support the joints of your knees, hips, and lower back, absorbing shock and distributing load in ways that protect these structures from the degenerative where that leads to chronic pain. They contribute to your balance and coordination, dramatically reducing the risk of falls. And they support your cardiovascular system by acting as a peripheral pump, helping push blood back toward the heart from the lower extremities. When leg muscle mass and strength decline, as they do when we are sedentary, the effects ripple outward in every direction. Balance deteriorates. The risk of falling increases. Joint pain worsens because the muscles that would normally protect the joint are no longer doing their job. Metabolism slows, making weight management more difficult. Energy levels drop because the cardiovascular system is working less efficiently. And independence becomes fragile, because the ability to rise from a chair, to climb a step, to walk across a room, all depend on a threshold of leg strength that, once lost, is terrifyingly difficult to recover. But here is what I want you to hold on to. Muscle, even in your 80s, responds to training. The research on this is clear and consistent. Older adults who engage in regular resistance exercise targeting the lower body experience measurable gains in muscle mass, strength, balance, and functional capacity. The body does not lose its ability to adapt. It simply needs to be given the right stimulus. And that stimulus does not need to be extreme. It does not need to be painful or exhausting. It simply needs to be consistent, and it needs to challenge the muscle enough to stimulate adaptation. Some of the most effective exercises for older adults targeting the lower body require no equipment whatsoever. Sit-to-stand exercises, where you practice rising from a chair and sitting back down slowly and with control, are extraordinarily powerful. They mimic one of the most fundamental movements of daily life, and they target exactly the muscles of the quadriceps and glutes that are most critical for independence. If you want to increase the challenge, slow down the motion. Take 3 to 5 seconds to lower yourself back into the chair. That slow, controlled lowering, what exercise scientists call the eccentric phase, is actually where a great deal of the strength-building stimulus comes from. Standing heel raises, where you hold a stable surface like a kitchen counter and rise slowly up onto your toes before lowering back down, build the calf muscles that are so important for balance and for the vascular pumping action that supports healthy circulation. Gentle side leg raises, standing on one leg with support, build the hip abductor muscles that stabilize your pelvis when you walk, muscles that, when weak, contribute dramatically to the shuffling, unstable gait that we associate with frailty and older age. And if you have access to a light resistance band, even a few minutes of gentle resistance work targeting your thighs and hips several times per week can produce remarkable results over a period of weeks and months. The key is not to wait. Every week of inactivity, every month of sitting still, accelerates the loss. But every single day of gentle, consistent movement is an investment in a future where you rise from your chair without assistance, where you walk across the room with confidence and ease, where you navigate steps without fear, where your body remains the willing vehicle for your life rather than becoming a cage. And now we come to the fifth and final practice, and it is one that I want to introduce not merely as an exercise technique, but as a philosophy, a way of inhabiting your body and your life that, once embraced, tends to transform everything else. I am talking about the ancient practices of yoga and Tai Chi, and I want to spend some time here because I think these disciplines are so frequently misunderstood, so often dismissed as something exotic or impractical, or suited only to people who are already flexible and fit, that their extraordinary potential for older adults goes almost entirely unrealized. Tai Chi originated in China as a martial art, but it has been practiced for centuries primarily as a moving meditation, a system of slow, flowing, continuous movements that demand focused attention, precise coordination, controlled breathing, and a quality of mindful presence that is rare in any other form of exercise. From the outside, it can look deceptively simple, almost effortless. But anyone who has practiced it knows that this simplicity is an illusion. Tai Chi demands extraordinary engagement from your balance systems, your proprioceptive nerves, your core stabilizing muscles, and your nervous system's capacity for fine motor coordination. It also demands something from your mind, specifically the ability to be fully present, to follow each movement with complete awareness, to let go of distraction, and simply be in your body in the current moment. This quality of mindful movement is, I believe, one of the most powerful antidotes to the anxiety and mental fragmentation that so many older adults experience. The research on Tai Chi and fall prevention in older adults is among the most consistent and compelling in the entire field of geriatric medicine. Multiple large-scale clinical trials have found that regular Tai Chi practice reduces the risk of falls in older adults by as much as 40 to 50%. This is a staggering figure. Falls are one of the leading causes of injury-related death and disability in people over 65. And yet, a gentle, graceful, meditative movement practice done for 20 or 30 minutes several times per week can cut that risk in half. The mechanism involves improvements in balance, coordination, reaction time, and what researchers call proprioception, your body's ability to sense its own position in space and make the thousands of tiny, automatic adjustments that keep you upright as you move through the world. Yoga, in its many forms, offers a somewhat different but equally extraordinary set of benefits. At its core, yoga is a practice of intentional union between breath, body, and awareness. When done with the right approach and proper instruction, it is one of the most effective tools available for improving flexibility, reducing joint stiffness, building functional strength, enhancing posture, and cultivating the kind of body awareness that prevents injury in daily life. But perhaps even more significant than the physical benefits is what yoga does for the nervous system. The combination of slow, controlled movement with conscious breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's rest and repair mode, in a way that few other practices can match. Chronic stress, with its elevated cortisol levels and persistent inflammatory effects, is one of the most destructive forces acting on the aging body. Yoga, practiced regularly, is one of the most powerful natural interventions known to science for reducing chronic stress and its downstream effects on physical health. What I love most about both of these practices is their accessibility. You do not need a young, flexible body to begin. You do not need prior experience. You do not need special equipment. There are versions of both yoga and Tai Chi that can be done seated in a chair, making them genuinely accessible to anyone regardless of current mobility or fitness level. There are beginner programs specifically designed for older adults that start slowly, honor the body's current limitations, and build gradually and safely over time. And there is a growing body of evidence showing that even when people begin these practices in their 70s and 80s, the benefits come. The body still responds. The nervous system still adapts. The balance improves, the stiffness eases, the mood lifts, and something deeper happens too. Something that is harder to measure but unmistakable to those who experience it. A growing sense of inhabiting your body with more comfort, more dignity, more ease. A feeling of being at home in yourself in a way that perhaps you had forgotten was possible. So wherever you are today, whatever condition your body is in right now, whatever doubts you might be carrying, I want to invite you to take one small step toward one of these practices. Find a beginner Tai Chi video online and follow along gently for 10 minutes. Find a chair yoga class at your local community center or senior center, or look for one on a streaming platform. Give it 2 weeks of genuine, consistent effort, and then tell me you don't feel different. Because I have seen this too many times to have any doubt about what happens. Now let me bring all of this together, because I think it is important to see these 5 practices not as isolated recommendations, but as a coherent, interconnected system for reclaiming your vitality. Sleep is the foundation. Without deep, restorative sleep, every other effort you make is undermined, because it is during sleep that your body repairs the muscles you've worked, consolidates the learning from the movements you've practiced, resets the hormonal systems that govern your energy and mood and immune function. When your sleep improves, everything else becomes easier. Movement throughout the day keeps your metabolism active, your circulation healthy, your brain chemistry balanced. It is the background hum of physical vitality that supports everything else. Daily sunlight calibrates your biological clock, ensuring that your sleep is properly timed, and your hormonal systems are synchronized with the natural rhythms that human biology evolved alongside. Lower body strength exercises build the physical foundation of your independence, the muscular capacity that allows you to move through the world with confidence and safety. And yoga or Tai Chi bring everything together, combining strength, balance, flexibility, breath, and mindfulness into a practice that heals not just the body but the mind and the spirit. These 5 practices together create something that no single intervention could achieve alone. They create the conditions for a life that is not merely longer but genuinely richer. A life in which you feel present and capable and alive. A life in which you engage with the people you love from a place of energy rather than exhaustion. A life in which your body is your partner rather than your opponent. I want to leave you with one thought that I share with every patient I have ever worked with, and it is this. Aging is not a disease. It is a journey. And like every journey, what you experience along the way depends enormously on how you prepare, how you equip yourself, and how intentionally you move forward. The 5 practices I have shared with you today are not miraculous cures. They are simply the tools that allow you to make the most of the extraordinary capacity your body still possesses, right now, at whatever age you are watching this. They are tools that thousands of people before you have used to reclaim strength they thought was gone, energy they thought had left them, independence they feared they were losing. And they are tools that are available to you, starting today, starting with the very next choice you make. So I am asking you to make that choice. Prioritize your sleep tonight with a little more intention than you did last night. Stand up and take a short walk around your home a few extra times today. Step outside tomorrow morning and let the sunlight reach your face for 10 minutes. Find a way to challenge your legs gently but consistently this week, and look into Tai Chi or yoga with genuine curiosity and openness. Do these things not because I am telling you to, but because you deserve the life they make possible. Because the people who love you deserve to have you present and strong and vibrant. Because somewhere inside you, there is a version of yourself that is not ready to slow down, not ready to accept less than what is possible. And that version of you is absolutely right. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If anything you have heard has resonated with you, if even one idea has sparked something in you, please share this with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below telling me which of these 5 practices you are going to start with. I read every single comment, and your stories, your progress, your questions. They are what keep me coming back to make more of these videos. If you found value here, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss what is coming next. Because I have a great deal more to share with you, and I will see you in the next one.